Good Thursday morning, everybody. Welcome to this week's uh, Memories Blanket Chit Chat. We are going to be talking about section 4 today, which was this section that I designed. And I'm going to let Debbie ask questions and stuff, but just wanted to say hi, everybody. I am Biz from Busy Crochet, and this is my cohort.
And I'm Debbie from MadameStitch.
And we are super glad that you are here. Glad that you joined us this morning. It's kind of a funky morning for all of us. So if we're not completely coherent, just chalk it up to it's 10 o'clock in the morning. At
But you
11,
know
whatever.
what? We'll definitely give you all the information you need for section 4. So no worries, even if we're a little wacko.
Yes. All of it and more, probably more than you ever wanted. Anyway, so I'm gonna let Debbie take it away.
It occurs to me, Biz, that at this point, section 4 completes one end of the blanket. I
It
don't
does.
think we've explained how these sections work. So you did a strip of squares, you did section 1, strip of squares. It's a tongue twister, so I'm not going to say it again, but you get the idea. And
Yep.
section 4
Hmm.
completes one end of the blanket.
Yeah.
Looking ahead, section 5, which releases on Monday,
Yeah.
completes the other end of the blanket so that you have
Yes.
sections bookending all of the squares.
Yeah.
So this will be the last uh, time you have to attach strips to a section before you can go on to the next section. So just keep
Hmm.
that in mind.
Yeah.
But Biz, could
Hmm.
you describe what stitches you used in this section? There are two parts to this section. So, what did you use in this section? And what special features does this particular section have?
Well, this one's going to be nice and easy for everybody because it is literally just double crochets. There's going to be front post double crochets, or maybe is it back post? I can't remember. It's one of the
No, they're front
posts.
post. They're front
Okay,
post worked on the back side.
okay. So front post double crochets and then chains. That's all there is in there. And then just that little ridge of color in between, that's going to be your usual single and then front post single crochet. So just really, really simple. So the part on the bottom has, like holes interspersed. And that one I used in my Bumblebee Garden baby blanket, which is a free pattern on my blog. But that's like the whole center section of it. And I kind of fell in love with that one because it was really, really simple to do, but it also was pretty to look at. And so this one,
Mhm.
because we're talking about how most of these sections in between the squares are about texture. This doesn't really have a lot of texture other than like visual texture. So
Mhm.
it's just a really nice place to relax. So the second section of section 4 is the waffle stitch. So of course we go right back into nice big chunky stitches because that's where I live. I love the waffle stitch. I did a whole blanket out of it. I wanted to try working with it one time. And I had gotten like a mystery box of yarn from like Mary Maxim or something. I'm like, well, what am I going to do with this yarn? The yarn wasn't worth talking about, but I got to make a whole baby blanket in the waffle stitch just trying out this yarn. And I really, really love it. It's really simple, but it's so much fun to look at and touch.
Yeah, I agree. I think I have one washcloth I did in waffle stitch. Um, but again, it's one of those nice relaxing stitch patterns that gives you so much impact in the blanket. If
Mhm.
you look at the section, the picture of the sections that we have on both of our blogs and how we worked them,
Mhm.
this particular section, section 4, only takes 3 colors, the main
Yeah.
color and 2 other colors.
Mhm.
So if you want a dramatic strip, choose, you know, nice bold colors. If you want something
Mhm.
that's a little more muted and lets the texture come through, then choose some neutrals or something a little bit lighter. But there are so many
Mhm.
possibilities, even in the simplicity.
Sorry, I keep getting this hair across my face and it's tickling. Um, I'm flailing on screen, but yes, and I was thinking about the if you have like a variegated that has kind of a slow or like a longer repeat in it, that first section that does the holes, that would you could use that there and it would still highlight both the stitches and the color. I would stay away from doing a variegated or anything that breaks up your eye on the waffle because you really want your stitches to stick out on that one because that's really
Mhm.
what the fun part of the waffle stitch is the shaping of the squares. So you're going to want to stick to a solid color there and yeah, like you said, I've seen it now. We've had quite a few people who did purchase the PDF and worked ahead. And so we've seen quite a few people now that have had really different colors in those sections. And it is very pretty and striking regardless of what you use.
I love the fact that you brought up the variegated because when I love variegated yarn. I love the fact that the colors play with each other, but I
Yeah.
hadn't really thought about it for this particular blanket. But there have been a few makers who have been using variegated yarn in some of their squares and strips.
Really
And
strategic
this,
spot.
yeah, and this would be a great place to do it in
Yeah.
that first part.
Yeah, the first part. And like I said, I would stay away from it on the waffle stitch. But um the other thing too is I've kind of noticed that um I'm not entirely sure that everybody realizes what a front or back post stitch is because
Mm,
I'm seeing a lot of sections that have front or back post instructions and people are working in the loops. So your post stitch, when you're looking at it, every stitch has like a up and down part no matter how small it is. Your single crochet is just going to be one of those. Your double is going to be two of those. So you're going to go around the post of your stitch and not through one of the top loops.
mhm,
So make sure that you're just really watching that. The only reason I'm saying that is because it creates a texture when you do the back post stitch or you do the
right.
front post stitch. It's for the purpose of pushing a stitch on the other side forward so that it raises it up. I'm not saying that anybody's blanket looks wrong. It's don't take that the wrong way.
Right.
But I want you to achieve the same, I want you to get the texture that you should.
Right, and one more clarification on those post stitches. When it says front post, let's say double crochet,
Mhm.
when you're working with a piece of crochet fabric, regardless of whether it's the right side or the wrong side of the fabric, the
Mhm.
front is what's facing you, the back is
Yeah.
what's away from you. And that's
Yes.
different from right side and wrong side. Those are
Yes,
different,
it is.
right?
Yeah.
So when Biz calls for front post double crochets, many of them are worked on the back side. They're worked on
Mhm.
what would be the wrong side of the blanket, but it's
Mhm.
what's facing you. And
Yeah.
when you do that, you work around the front of the stitch rather than
Mhm.
the back of the stitch.
Yeah, those are some areas that can be kind of confusing, especially if you're new to working with post stitches and loop
Mhm.
stitches and all of that kind of stuff. So a lot of people, when they very first start crocheting, will do like single crochet in the back loop only, and then they'll do it, and it creates that ribbing stitch that everybody's
Mhm.
used to seeing, where it's got kind of like that V chunkiness. This is gonna be very different, and because you're going around the body of this stitch, you're not
Correct.
dealing with the top. I know,
Right,
I've
so
had that,
right, well, just one more point of clarification so people know why it's different.
Mhm,
When you're talking about front loop and back loop,
mhm.
again, you're talking about whichever loop, but now we're just talking about the top loop that sits on top
Yeah,
of the
that
stitch.
little V.
So you have the post and then
Mhm,
you have the top loop,
mhm.
and those are two separate parts of the stitch. So just be aware that you need to use the post of the stitch in this particular section.
Yeah, because that's gonna
There we
be
go.
what actually creates the cavity of
Mhm.
your waffle stitch. When you're going back across the right side of your work, you're gonna be just doing, you're going to be doing one front post stitch and then three regular double crochets to
Mhm.
work into and continue to create that cavity. You just have to watch which side you're on, and it's only going to be front posts, so you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, am I doing the back double here or am I doing the front post? It's only a front post. Just pay attention to which side you're on.
Exactly. All right, so why did you choose these particular stitches for section 4?
Um, Going back to what I had said just a little bit earlier, the bumblebee garden blanket, I just really love that little bit of open work where it's kind of solid, but it's got just those little peekaboo holes, and it's pretty to look at. And it's simple. And at that point in the blanket when we were in the designing process, I'm like, I just need something simple. I
Let's
just
just do something, take a break.
Yeah, I don't wanna rack my brain anymore. I don't wanna have to count that hard. So, yeah, that's kinda why that one went that way. And then, I was like, "Oh my gosh, I love the waffle stitch." It's just it doesn't get used enough. I'm just gonna be honest. And I think it's because it feels like it's a little bit of a yarn eater, and
A little bit.
it's very thick. It's very, very
Yeah,
thick. So, like,
yeah.
to do a whole project in a waffle stitch, it feels really big and thick. So, I'm sure that's why it's not used a whole lot. But, I just I'm texture. I love the texture. I love doing this dish because it's super simple, but it gives me a lot of bang for my buck.
I think it's a wonderful progression out of the front post squares, right? Because
That
yeah,
too.
I know, right? We again, we reiterate that we didn't really confer with each other about what we were doing in our squares and our sections, and we didn't coordinate this. This was just a lucky happenstance. But I think
Fly by the
what's
seat of our
really
pants.
cool about the way you put this particular section in the blanket is we have that row of front post squares that has
Mhm.
so much stuff going on.
Yeah.
And then we have a simple, just part of section 4
Yeah.
that kind of goes, okay. And then we
Yeah.
do the waffle stitch to recall our journey through the front post
Yeah.
squares. And it's really, I just am marveling at how it they all relate to each other.
They're fun, and I did actually think about that as we were, putting out our stuff this week, and I'm like, "Holy cow, the waffle stitch really plays off of that front post section," and that was not a conscious thing, it just happened.
No, it just happened. I think that's
Yeah,
marvelous.
it's fun.
All right. So we've sprinkled in some tips and tricks as we've
Mhm.
been talking about these two stitch patterns. But do you have anything specifically that you'd like to offer makers as they start this section?
Gosh, I think I covered them all as I was talking, but, um, just really, relax, take the time to just enjoy this part. It's not that the rest coming is hard, um,
Mhm.
it's just this is a really relaxing section, and you should be able to bang this out in a day or 2. But, yeah, other than that, really, there isn't anything, like, we really kinda talked about it. Oh, let's see, hang on, I'm gonna put this up here.
Yeah.
Kristen said, I've never done the waffle stitch before in all my years of crochet, kind of for that reason. Seems like it will be pretty thick for a whole project. Looking forward to that section. So that's one of the reasons why I did them in kind of like little baby chunks, is because when you're thinking about a sampler stitch blanket, I've seen a lot of people who do like where it's just like a row of a
Mhm.
different stitch all the way throughout, and those are very pretty, but I feel like I don't get the chance to really experience the stitch. And so this way, because we had specific, like, measurements that we were trying to hit in between each of our, so that we had an idea in mind. It wasn't completely off the cuff. I mean, like, we did fly by the seat of our pants, but we
There
we
was
were
a little
trying to rein it
framework.
in. But so I wanted them to be about 2.5, 3 inches in that space. And so I think 3 inches really gives you the opportunity to experience a stitch for more than
Yes.
a row or two.
Right.
There's no more than like 5 or 6 rows per section. So it's long enough to get a good feel, short enough to have fun with it.
Right. And again, I just like to reiterate this throughout all of our discussions. part of the beauty of a stitch sampler blanket, especially one like this, where we have larger chunks to invest in some of these stitch patterns, you we all have a personal crochet toolkit that we
Mhm,
fill with our favorite stitches, our favorite techniques, our favorite
mhm,
hooks, our favorite yarns, all of those things that go into informing the projects that we choose to do coming up. And
mhm,
now, with all of the things that you've been presented in this blanket, including section 5 coming up and the
yeah,
border, which is
yeah,
a pretty standard style border, you're getting all of these things that you can choose from. You now know when you look at
mhm,
someone's design, oh, I
mhm,
did that one. That one would work for the yarn that I have. Or now you have so much information that you've put into your toolkit that I think that might be my favorite part of this blanket, other than the fact that it's gorgeous.
it is
Um,
pretty.
but now there's so much to choose from in one short crochet along, and
Mhm.
6 weeks is not long for a blanket, so
Really isn't. I mean,
no.
my typical ones are usually 8 to 9 weeks long, and people are like, "Would can we just end now? Like, can we be done?" You know,
You just
this
banged
one,
this puppy out.
it felt like it was long when we first started. I'm like, "Gosh, I just want everybody to have the parts." But then, here we are, next week's the last week, like, "What the heck? How did that happen?"
I
Um,
know.
but I did wanna say that, i- uh, jumping on what you said about, we've all learned some new things through this blanket and even dreaded section number 2. Um, that is, you either loved it or you hated it. There are people who I am sure viscerally hate that diamond stitch. And you know what? You never have to touch it again. And even if you didn't want to touch it this time, because I think that there are people that are maybe like, I think I'm going to do something else there. But even if you really struggled through it, now you can look and say, I've seen people who are like, I'm gonna do more of these. I really like this. I want to do a couple of projects in this. And that is where I was when I learned that stitch. I became a woman obsessed. I was like, I have to make everything in this stitch. And I did. And now I'm like, okay, it's part of what you said, my arsenal. There are gonna be people who are gonna avoid that stitch like the black plague, and never touch it again. But you at least got to experience because,
Yep.
before you would have looked at it and you would have said, "I don't know if I want to make that project. I'm not sure I understand that stitch." Now you can say, "I absolutely love it," or "No." Just no. That is a no. I'm just gonna pop up
No.
some comments that are coming through. Betty says, "Seeing everyone's blanket is so exciting and seeing all the different colors." I agree. I think one of the most fun parts of this is been able to watch or being able to watch everybody's version of it coming through.
And I just wanna piggyback on that. I absolutely have loved, I could tell you different color palettes that I've actually adored. But
Mhm.
the one that struck me the most, because I'm a neutral palette person, I love
Mm,
to do neutrals.
yeah.
The neutral one was so dramatic, it was
Oh my gosh.
crazy. I
Wasn't that?
couldn't believe how dramatic that looked, and I would never have guessed. I would have
No,
thought
I
that it
wouldn't have
would
gone that
wash
way.
everything out,
Yeah.
but it
My
didn't.
brain doesn't think like that. My brain goes, "Oh, the rainbow." Let's see. Teresa says the diamond stitch wasn't so bad once you figured it out. It was definitely a rhythm thing. Like, once you understood the construct of it, it's a really simple stitch. It was just a matter of understanding where you needed to be. And then Betty, I will never do the diamond stitch again. Totally fried my brain. Okay, babe. I totally understand. Totally get it. And then Fern, she also loves to see all the colors. Um, it's just like we've said before, and we'll keep saying it throughout. It's been like the best part of it all is watching everybody's version of it come through.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Alright. Well, anything else you wanna say about section 4 before we move on and let everybody do their thing?
I don't think so. I Section 4, relax, have fun, do your thing, use your solids, find a fun variegated, something like that. I think this is Geraldine. Diamond Stitch out for me too. You are welcome. You are very welcome. But section 5 coming up on Monday because we won't be able to talk about it before then. It goes back to lots of texture on the first part of it. It's gonna have some single crochets, gonna have some from post treble crochets, etc. And the very, very last part of your section is going to be lots of color changes again with a really, really delicate texture to it too.
Mhm.
So I mean, I can't wait to see what you guys do with everything. We'll be back here Monday morning because we won't have our podcast this week. There's a prior engagement.
Bummer.
Yeah. Yep. So we won't be here tomorrow like we normally are. We have 2 Fridays of this month where we aren't going to be here, but it, gives everybody a break. But you guys have been with us, 2 days, at least 2 days a week for the blanket. So bless you.
Oh my gosh, I've had so much fun, and we're not done yet. We have 2
No,
more
we have 2 more.
next week, so
Yep.
stick with us.
Yep.
We might even do a third. I haven't talked to Biz about this. We might even do a third wrap up going, "Woohoo!" You
Dun,
know?
da, 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 da. Yeah. So we are gonna say adieu for now. I'm sure I just massacred that word. Um, Teresa says, thank you very much for a beautiful blanket. You are so welcome. And Tolga says, Olga, I'm not sure what that means, but if you understand what that means, blessing is on you. So yes, have a wonderful weekend, everybody. We will see you Monday morning.
Oh, enjoy.
Yep. Bye.